All right, so let's get into it today. We're looking at, well, bit of a head scratcher, really.
Mm.
Manchester United, a team that can go toe to toe with the big boys like Liverpool,
Right.
but then they just crumble against teams that on paper they should be beating.
Yeah.
So to try to understand this a bit better, we've got a post match analysis of their draw with Liverpool,
Okay.
which is pretty impressive. No other teams managed to do that this season. And we've also got some interesting comments from the manager Ruben Amorim
Yeah.
and the captain Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to break down the match itself, but also some of the maybe deeper issues going on with the team and ultimately what it means for their future.
That sounds good.
So first off, that Liverpool match, what jumps out at you about that? I mean, it's on the surface level, a draw against the league leaders is pretty impressive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is, especially when you consider, like you said, nobody else has managed to take points off of Liverpool this season. And the pundits, they were praising Man U's performance. They were saying that they were brave, they were controlled, they matched Liverpool's intensity. Even Gary Neville, who's never afraid
Right.
to share his opinion, he said it was one of their best performances under Amorim. He actually said it felt like a victory.
Interesting. But that's where things get a little bit puzzling, right? Because this amazing performance is happening in the context of a really inconsistent season.
Totally.
They're 13th in the league. Only 3 wins since Amorim took over. And before this draw, they were on a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah, no, it's not exactly inspiring.
Not exactly the stuff of champions.
No.
And that's what makes those post-match reactions so interesting. You'd expect after getting a draw against Liverpool, maybe some relief, some satisfaction. But both Amorim and Fernandes were surprisingly negative.
Yeah, almost shockingly so.
Yeah. I was really struck by Amorim's comments. He said he was mad, and not in a good way. Like,
Yeah.
he was more upset about this draw than their losses to Newcastle, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, it's almost like he sees this match as a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
He said, I get more mad because at the other games, it's even harder to understand some things. We should get mad and disappointed more than the other day against Newcastle, Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest.
Wow.
It's like, if you can play like this against Liverpool, why can't you do it every week?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then you have Fernandes echoing that sentiment, like
Yeah.
practically begging the question, why can't they replicate this performance?
I think what's so fascinating here is that it points to a deeper disconnect between what they're capable of and what they're actually delivering on the pitch.
Okay.
Amorim called it a need for a shock. He thinks the players, maybe even the whole club, have become complacent. It's like they're missing that inner drive, that hunger to win.
That's a really interesting point. So it's not just about tactics or formation.
Yes.
It's about something deeper, like a mental block or something. I mean, how do you even begin to fix that
He keeps calling it this mentality gap.
mentality gap?
And I think it's worth unpacking a little bit here. Think of it as that space between what a team is capable of doing
Right.
and what they're actually doing on a consistent basis. And he's calling for a shock because he thinks they've just gotten too comfortable. He wants to shake things up and really instill a winning mindset.
Okay, so this mentality gap thing, it's not just a football problem.
Oh, no, definitely not.
It's something we see everywhere,
Yeah.
right? You have people, you have whole organizations that are capable of achieving great things,
Absolutely.
but they fall short because they can't maintain that drive, that hunger.
It's that consistency that separates those who excel from those who, just show those flashes of brilliance.
Right. And that's what makes this so intriguing. It's not just about, breaking down a football match.
No.
It's about exploring this psychology of performance. What separates the winners from the losers?
Yeah, it's a good question.
So how does Amorim plan to bridge this gap?
Well, he's made it very clear that it's not about formations or tactics.
Okay.
It's about that grit, the fight. He wants them to believe in themselves, to go after those second balls. Those things that don't always make the highlight reel, but they add up.
So less X's and O's, more heart and hustle.
Exactly. He's trying to instill this work ethic, a level of commitment that goes beyond just natural talent.
Which is interesting because, thinking back to Sir Alex Ferguson, arguably the most successful manager in Man U history,
Right.
he built his whole dynasty on hard work and discipline and this relentless desire to win. He didn't just recruit talented players, he cultivated a winning mentality within the club.
Absolutely.
So this mentality gap, it's not a new problem for Manchester United,
No, not at all.
and it suggests that bridging it requires more than just, tactical adjustments.
Right.
It's about really instilling a certain ethos, a DNA within the team.
And that's where Amarim's leadership becomes crucial. Can he create an environment where complacency is unacceptable and striving for excellence becomes the norm?
And what about Fernandez? I mean, his outbursts suggest he's also aware of this problem. What role can he play in all this?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think Fernandez's reaction adds another layer to this whole thing.
Okay.
Because he's not just a talented player, he's a leader on the pitch. And his frustration,
Yeah.
while initially maybe concerning, could actually be a good thing.
Okay, so you're saying his outburst, his frustration, could actually be a positive.
Yeah, I think so. Think about it this way. He's not just leading by example, he's challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
He's demanding more from himself and from his teammates.
Right.
And that kind of leadership coming from a player like Fernandez,
Yeah.
that can be really powerful.
So he's almost like a spokesperson for the fans' frustrations,
Exactly.
but with the added weight of, actually being a key player.
Precisely. And that kind of authenticity can be really contagious.
Okay, but let's be realistic here. It's not just about shouting louder or running faster.
No, of course not.
How do they actually translate this passion into, tangible results on the pitch?
Well, remember what Amarim said about going for those second balls.
Right.
That's a perfect example.
Okay.
Winning those individual battles, those 50-50 challenges that often determine the flow of a game.
So you're saying this isn't just some vague, abstract concept.
No.
It actually manifests in very specific action.
Exactly.
Okay, fine.
And there were other examples in that Liverpool match. Those moments when Man U pressed high up the pitch,
Yeah.
forced Liverpool into mistakes. That's not just tactics. That's a willingness to take risks, to disrupt the opponent's rhythm and impose their own style.
When you describe it that way, it's like watching a completely different team.
Yeah.
Like they tapped into this level of intensity and aggression that we just haven't seen consistently.
Right.
The question is, can they bottle that lightning and unleash it every single week?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. And to answer it, I think we need to delve a little deeper into Amarim's coaching style.
Yeah.
His ability to motivate and inspire, and the potential role that Fernandez can play as a leader both on and off the pitch. But before we do that, I think it's worth looking at their upcoming fixtures.
Okay.
And how those might test this newfound resolve.
All right, so let's shift gears then and talk about what lies ahead for Manchester United.
Okay.
They've got some tough matches coming up. Southampton, Brighton.
Right. Not exactly pushovers.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
These are going to be some tricky fixtures for them, and they'll be a real test of whether or not they can translate this renewed focus
That's right.
into consistent performance.
Because it's not about playing beautifully or dominating possession. It's
Yeah.
about grinding out results.
Right.
Even when they're not playing their best.
That's what separates the top teams from the rest. The ability to win even when you're not at your peak. So it sounds like these next few matches are going to be crucial in determining whether this draw against Liverpool was a turning point or just, a fleeting moment of brilliance.
It really comes down to this. Can Amarim instill this hunger in his players?
Right.
Can he close this mentality gap?
Yeah.
And can a player like Fernandez, with his passion and leadership, help drive that transformation?
All right, so before we jump into all that, let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to dissect Amarim's leadership style,
Okay.
the challenges he faces,
Sounds good.
and the potential role of Fernandez in all of this. We'll also look at some historical examples of teams that have overcome similar challenges and what lessons Man U can learn from them. Stay tuned because this deep dive is just getting started. So we were talking about this mentality gap and how Amarim's trying to bridge it. I mean, from a coaching perspective, what are some of the things he can actually do to instill this hunger and consistency?
Right. Well, it's definitely more than just, giving a rousing speech or two. He needs
Yeah.
to create a culture
Yeah.
where this hunger is just ingrained in every aspect of the team, from training to match day.
Yeah, okay.
And one way to do that is to set really high standards and hold players accountable. Like we were talking about with Sir Alex Ferguson. He was known for being tough,
Right.
demanding excellence. Amarim can take a page from that playbook,
Right.
set those expectations, and make it clear that complacency just won't fly.
So it's about discipline, accountability,
Yeah,
setting that bar high and making sure everyone's pushing to reach it.
exactly. And that can involve a lot of things, rigorous training drills, video analysis, individual meetings where performance is reviewed, really getting granular.
So the data-driven approach.
Very much so. And it's something you see at the top levels of all sports.
Right.
Elite athletes are constantly analyzing their performance, looking for those weaknesses and working tirelessly to improve.
But isn't there a risk of creating too much pressure?
Oh, for sure. There's definitely a balance to strike.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want players to be so afraid of failure that they're not willing to take risks. It's about being demanding but supportive.
Okay.
You know, challenge, but also encourage to try new things and learn from those mistakes. And communication is key.
Okay.
You know, players need to feel like they can voice their concerns, share their ideas, be a part of the solution.
So it's a collaborative thing.
Very much so. It's about fostering this sense of collective responsibility, you know, that they all share in the team's success.
And that's where a player like Fernandez can have a real impact.
Right.
I mean, he's already shown that he's not afraid to speak his mind, you know.
Right. He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, but demand more from himself and his teammates.
And that's what makes him so valuable in this situation. It's not just his talent, it's his work ethic.
Yeah.
His dedication to improvement and his willingness to, you know, to challenge the status quo. He can really set the tone for the rest of the team.
It's interesting because we always talk about leading by example, but in this case, it's almost like he's leading by challenging.
I think you're right. It's that discontent with mediocrity that can be just as powerful.
And it's authentic.
Exactly. He's not just saying what he thinks people want to hear.
Right.
He's genuinely frustrated. And that can be contagious in a good way.
I'm also thinking about the role of the fans here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Manchester United has an incredibly passionate fan base.
They do.
Can their energy, their expectations actually influence the team's mentality?
You know, it's interesting how fans can have such a profound impact on performance. There's actually a whole field of study dedicated to it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The psychology of crowds and their influence on athletes. It's fascinating.
I never knew that.
Studies have shown that, you know, a supportive crowd can boost a team's confidence, reduce stress, even enhance performance.
You think about the energy at Old Trafford. When Man U is playing well, it's electric.
Absolutely. It's like a surge of adrenaline for the players.
And on the flip side, when a team is struggling,
Right?
you can feel that frustration.
Yeah, it could be a heavy weight.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is. And I think it's something that Amram has to be mindful of. He needs to harness that positive energy from the fans.
Right.
But also find a way to shield the players from that pressure.
But how do you do that? Can't control how the fans feel.
It's about managing expectations and communicating clearly.
Yeah.
You know, acknowledge their frustrations, but also emphasize the long-term vision, the steps he's taking to build that winning culture.
Transparency.
Yeah, be honest, even when things are tough.
Make them feel like they're part of the solution.
Exactly. It's about creating that sense of unity.
Yeah.
You know, that belief that together they can turn things around.
Okay, so we've talked about Amram's approach to the role of Fernandez the fans. But are there any examples from history? You know, any teams that have faced this kind of challenge and successfully bridged this mentality gap?
Well, there are a few that come to mind. One is that Leicester City team that won the Premier League back in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nobody expected them to do it. But they had this incredible team spirit, this belief in themselves.
It was an amazing story.
It was.
What was it about their mentality that set them apart?
They played with this sense of freedom and fearlessness. You know, they weren't burdened by expectations. They were just out there enjoying the game.
Yeah.
And that joy, that passion, it was contagious.
So it's not just about, you know, hard work and discipline.
No.
It's also about that belief, that joy. Is that something that Amram can cultivate?
Well, it's a challenge,
Yeah.
especially with a club like Manchester United. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of weight on their shoulders.
Right.
But I think it's possible.
Okay.
And if he can create an environment where players feel free to express themselves, to take risks, to play with that same kind of joy and fearlessness that we saw in Leicester City,
Yeah.
then who knows? Maybe they can achieve something special.
It's fascinating how all these different elements can influence a team's mentality.
It
You
is.
know, the coach, the captain, the fans, even history.
It's this complex interplay of psychology, leadership, and culture.
And that's what makes football so unpredictable.
Absolutely. It's not just about the X's and O's. It's about the human element, the emotions, the belief.
The passion.
And that's what makes this so interesting, you know? It's not just about analyzing a match.
Yeah.
It's about exploring those deeper forces that shape a team's destiny.
And in the case of Manchester United, the potential is there. The talent's undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about harnessing those raw ingredients,
Yeah.
cultivating the right mentality, and bridging that gap between what they are and what they can be.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So the question remains, can they do it?
Right. Can they overcome those mental hurdles
Yeah.
and unlock their true potential?
Well, that's the big question. And I guess only time will tell.
It will.
But as we've discussed, the pieces are there.
Right.
They have a coach who gets it,
Yeah.
a captain who's ready to challenge the status quo.
And a fan base that's desperate for success.
And we can't forget those historical examples.
Right. It's been done before.
It's not impossible.
And maybe, just maybe, this draw against Liverpool, this moment of frustration, will be the catalyst for change.
Turning point.
Exactly.
Well, if that's the case, we're in for one heck of a ride.
Oh, absolutely. Buckle up.
All right, well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap things up and bring this deep dive home. We've covered a lot today. Explored the complexities of mentality, leadership, team dynamics. But now it's time to distill it all down to those key takeaways.
Okay.
What are the most important things for our listeners to remember about this whole Manchester United saga?
If I had to pick just one, I'd say the biggest takeaway is that success in football and really in life in general goes beyond just talent. You know, it's about having that winning mentality, that hunger, the belief, the resilience that allows people and teams to reach their full potential.
We saw a glimpse of that potential at Anfield, right? That glimpse of what Man U can be when they're firing on all cylinders. But like we've been talking about, the real test is, can they do it week in and week out, no matter who the opponent is?
It's about consistency. And that's where Amarim's leadership becomes so important. He needs to be more than just a tactician, you know? He's got to be a cultivator of culture, a builder of belief, really drive that pursuit of excellence.
And it sounds like he's got a partner in crime in Fernandes.
Yeah.
You know, his frustration, that vocal leadership.
Yeah.
That could be the spark that really ignites this transformation.
I think so. Fernandes' passion is contagious. And if he can channel that energy in a positive way, really push his teammates to raise their game, it could change everything for Man U.
And we can't forget about the fans either.
No, they're a huge part of it.
That energy, those expectations, they can really shape the team's mentality. Amarim's got to harness that passion, make the fans feel like they're part of this journey.
It's a collective effort, you know, like a symphony of individual talents and aspirations all working towards a common goal.
Yeah, it's like a recipe, right? You've got the ingredients, the talent, the resources, but it's the chef, the leader, who brings it all together, adds that special something that elevates it from just, a bunch of ingredients to a masterpiece.
I like that analogy. And Amarim is the chef in this case, and he's got a world-class kitchen at his disposal.
He does.
But the key is consistency, right? It's not enough to create one amazing dish.
Right.
You got to deliver that level of excellence every single time.
And that's the challenge facing Man U right now. Can they translate these moments of brilliance, these flashes of inspiration, into a sustained success?
That's the question. And we don't have the answer, but I think the ingredients are there. The potential is undeniable. It's just a matter of putting it all together and finding that winning formula.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away thinking about?
I want them to think about the power of mentality. Not just in football, but in everything we do. It's the difference between dreaming of success and actually achieving it. It's what drives people to defy the odds and do extraordinary things. It's what separates the good from the great. So ask yourself, what's your mentality? Are you cultivating a mindset that's going to help you reach your full potential? It's something to think about.
It really is. And as we've seen with Man U, the journey is just as important as the destination. The challenges, the setbacks, even the doubts, they all shape us. So embrace the journey, stay hungry, and never stop believing in your ability to achieve great things. And that's it, folks. Another deep dive complete. We hope you enjoyed exploring Manchester United's quest for consistency and the power of mentality. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.